back to a question that marketers are asking, which is, how do I really involve the consumer and how do I reward them? I think one of the things that we have to ask, besides you can put your video up, is what is the actual reward for a consumer of spending their time when increasingly they have other places where they can spend their energy and time. Some companies like Uniqlo have been experimenting with actually physically, monetarily rewarding consumers. The more you tell people, the more you tweet, the lower the price. Will that be a model for the future? It'll be interesting to see how it is that participation is going to be rewarded by marketers. If we look at utility, I think, again, we've all seen at this meeting and others, this enormous growth of apps, which are adding new types of value. The reality is we're in an app war, though, where, in fact, part of the competition we are all going to have to deal with in the future is around creating value that is distinctive. Because just like there's lots of people that want you to spend time on their digital content, there are lots and lots of apps competing increasingly for your attention and for your utility. What this brings about, interestingly too, is that more marketers are having to look to a new competitive set. It's one thing if you see as a car maker that a car maker is simply your competitor, but when you're in a world of providing utility, you start to cross into other people that are providing maybe similar utility. If you're offering a restaurant guide as a beer, well, there may be a credit card or another marketer that equally wants to help you find the restaurant. So the app world isn't an easy layup. Let's not deceive ourselves that having an app is going to be the solution. There are a lot of good apps out there, but it's a space that a lot of people want to play in, and we're going to have to continue as marketers to find distinctive value. Otherwise, the apps will be drowned out over time. The other area that I think is critical is contribution. And all of us have, I think, grown up seeing customers as valuable in a number of different metrics, and certainly loyalty and purchase, as well as the ongoing viral benefit of having advocates has been well documented over the years, and certainly precedes anything in digital. So this is not new. I think what is happening, though, given digital, is really an emerging area that needs to be built upon and quantified more, and that's customer contribution. Consumers or customers are clearly contributing enormous value today to the right brands. And they're doing it in many, many different ways that derive financial value. They're doing it by being fans, by posting, by voting, by co-creating, by crowdsourcing, by mass ordering, by participating in many different ways. And I think we're really at the early stage of marketers figuring out how to best create meaningful contribution and figuring out how to really turn that into an ongoing value and recognize how to best leverage that. Some companies, of course, have been, and there are a number of examples, one that I'm reasonably close to given my location in Japan is Muji. Number of companies that have been harnessing consumer contribution for some time. Muji has 50 of its products, in fact, that have been developed by the community. So increasingly they are, like other companies, looking to their consumer to help them create the brands, create the products that they find useful. So we will continue to see the customer adding and contributing in new ways, and the question is, how do we best hasten that as brands? The next issue that will be very important in moving the market forward is really around developing great content. Now, I know Richard talked a bit about content and story. The reality is there are not a lot of companies that have fully figured out how to best create content as the digital bait for the brand. Companies often get into digital and realize that they have content that gets worn out pretty quickly. The consumer's pretty hungry for more. There's a real need for companies now, if they want to be content players, to look more deeply at what they have to offer and find more human content. I'd like to show you an example briefly of a company that you may not associate readily with great human content. But I think it's an amazing story of how companies really can evolve in the content world. For those of you that are not familiar, Watson is a supercomputer from IBM that has learned through years and years of teaching how to interact and how to effectively start to think a lot like a human. IBM had a great idea, and that great idea was to put Watson to the challenge with two people who had been the stars of an American show called Jeopardy. And I'd like to show you what happened when Watson went on TV and took on these two gentlemen who were the two top players in Jeopardy. If we can run that video, please.
We'd like to treat you to a short round of Jeopardy. It's going to be hosted by a member of our Jeopardy Clue Crew. Please welcome Jimmy McGuire. Gentlemen?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. What do you say we play Jeopardy? Let's get right into the Jeopardy round. These categories: a man, a plane, a canal, Erie, Chicks Dig Me, children's book titles, Mine Michelle, MC5, and finally vocabulary. Ken, you're in the first position. Please make a selection.
I've never said this on TV. Chicks Dig Me for 200, please.
Kathleen Kenyon's excavation of this city mentioned in Joshua showed the walls had been repaired 17 times. Watson.
What is Jericho?
Correct.
400, same category.
This mystery author and her archaeologist hubby dug in hopes of finding the lost Syrian city of Urkesh. Watson?
Who is Agatha Christie?
Correct.
Same category, 600.
At the Olduvai Gorge in 1959, she and hubby Lewis found a 1.75 billion-year-old Australopithecus Boise-eyed skull. Watson?
Who is Mary Leakey?
You're right.
800, same category.
Harriet Boyd Hawes was the first woman to discover and excavate a Minoan settlement on this island. Watson?
What is Crete?
Yes.
Let's finish Chicks Dig Me.
Okay, we can stop the video there. We can stop the video there. Oh, just to save time. Can anybody guess who won? Now, this was not a stunt. This was a platform. It was a platform to tell the story. Richard was talking about telling the story. This was the story of how they make technology human. And it's not easy to actually create something that can spontaneously both assess a question and provide an answer. Right? Even with the supercomputer, that technology is telling the story that is at the core of what IBM does to make its products more useful and intuitive. And what happened as a result of this content, which had an enormous impact upon the brands, they used it in many ways. They went to 58 colleges around the United States to talk to people and the young students, to gather the young, an IBM brand has to stay young and fresh. It did it through this platform. It had to reach out into the community, and it built an ecosystem that was amazing in terms of the impact because it became part of the social fabric. It was tweeted about, it was talked about on popular shows. Of course, it had its media value. There were 34 million people that watched it, that talked about it, but it also fundamentally generated leads. That was the point I was making earlier. We've got to continue to build the business case. This drove the business. This drove actual ability to talk to individual consumers or customers that they wanted to reach, to tell the story of how their technology can help them. So there was this very strong business case as well as a overall image case that was built by this. That's what content increasingly is going to have to be set up to do, to insinuate its way into the society, to not just be a brand ad, but a lot more. Equally, social is going to need to continue to move really to the center, not just, again, as an add-on or a page, but actually fundamental to the way companies think and deliver their business case. I'd like to show you one other piece, which is about social really at the center, increasingly, of the enterprise and brand.
Here's a simple truth. Parents love to share pictures of their babies. So companies gave parents throughout Hong Kong the chance to share those pictures at at a scale never seen before. To increase preference for the brand, drive trial, and outsmart their competition without outspending them, Huggies won the hearts and minds of moms and dads by helping them share those beloved pictures with everyone. Huggies' Facebook page became a picture-sharing platform for parents. 60 of the most liked photos would actually be printed on more than 10 double-decker Huggies Babies buses cruising through the streets of Hong Kong. Parents uploaded their babies' photos to share with their social circles. They roused friends and family to vote for their baby, driven by the opportunity for their child to be seen by millions of people throughout the city. But featuring 60 winning photos wasn't enough. Huggies decided to print all 4,000 entries in one massive billboard to reward every parent who participated. Proud parents flocked to sites throughout Hong Kong to see their child's picture. Crowds gathered at train stations. New photos were taken on site, uploaded, and shared. And another cycle of user-generated content and social interactions around Huggies' brand was in motion. Facebook, billboards, TV, online and bus advertisements seamlessly combined online and offline experiences, creating remarkable results. In just 2 weeks, the number of Facebook fans soared to 120,000, becoming the second largest online brand community in Hong Kong. Fan interactions across social circles generated 7 million impressions. 5% of global competitive brand consumers switched to Huggies, and 20% agreed to try Huggies. Downloads of the Huggies iPhone app for moms to be increased by 79%. And according to Nielsen, the months during and after the campaign were Huggies' best sales months ever in Hong Kong. Participants didn't just share photos on Facebook, they shared the joy of parenthood.
So increasingly, this is what social is going to need to do. It's going to need to make the very provocative business case of growth. It's not just about likes. It's not just about fan pages. It's about really having a business case that is going to get the attention of the people that are, again, not in this room, the mass of the market who are not the believers who need to move on. I'm going to finish up in just a second, but I'll cover the last couple of pieces that I think are going to be imperatives, again, for us to keep moving the market forward and for people not in the room to continue to be believers. It's going to be about really mastering in the future, and this will be one of the hardest ones, the data value exchange. Ensuring that the data that consumers are giving us and that we're taking from them turns into something that they recognize as value. And increasingly, that's actually going to mean helping them recognize themselves. I think one of the big trends we've seen around the world is that nothing fascinates the consumer like himself or herself. They are very interested in others, but they're equally very interested in themselves. There's a great opportunity to continue to help consumers learn things about their own patterns, habits, attitudes, etc., that become valuable to the brand. I mean, you've certainly seen great examples with Nike and others. But related to that is my final piece, which is a way I think to finish this meeting. Consumers have to trust everything we're doing as marketers. Tim Berners-Lee, of all people, reminded us years ago that data is something very sacred to people. It's theirs, right? And that we're in a world now where there's a great irony that consumers are both exhibitionists on the one hand and very strict data gatekeepers on the other. When I want to offer myself to the world on Facebook or another platform, I'm fine. But the second you invade my space, I have a problem. Because at the end of the day, 70% of consumers say this: advertisers can't be trusted. And in fact, even some of the big players at this conference fundamentally in the marketplace get questioned around the use of data. So we've seen horrible things in the market in the last year or two about what can happen when that trust is broken. So my final point is there's huge opportunity, but I think there's also huge obligation from us as marketers to make sure we care for that trust properly. So I think we have a great opportunity ahead of us, but I would say that part of that opportunity is going to be about hastening this DigiMarketing shift. Thank you.